Howdy. You know, sometimes as pastors, we find ourselves needing to remind ourselves of things that we preached on. Not too long ago, some of you who attend First Presbyterian Church here in Brighton may remember that I did a sermon series on James. And in that sermon series, on one of the first weeks, there was a very important passage that I read and preached on and learned from. And I wanted to read that passage again real quickly and then tell you what I have had to remind myself, I guess, as we are in the midst of what we are in the midst of. It's from James chapter 1, beginning at verse 19. James writes, "You must understand this, my beloved. Let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. For your anger does not produce God's righteousness. Therefore rid yourselves of all sordidness and the rank growth of wickedness, and welcome with meekness the implanted word that has the power to save your souls. But be doers of the word and not merely hearers who deceive themselves. For if any are hearers of the word and not doers, they are like those who look at themselves in a mirror, for they look at themselves and on going away immediately forget what they were like." Now, I bring this up because I don't know if you're like me, but maybe you've spent a little more time on Facebook or other social medias throughout this time. And it's a wonderful, wonderful tool. I mean, we're able to put these devotionals out on Facebook. We're able to connect with our friends and family members on Facebook. I've seen people sharing album covers on Facebook of the music that has been so important to them. I've seen people posting pictures of their high school graduation to support the graduates. I've seen so many wonderful things on Facebook, but I've seen other things too. I've seen a lot of anger being spewed, and I see a lot of division and arguments going on. It's really sad that a tool that can bring so much joy can also be a tool that can bring so much hatred and anger. And what I realize sometimes is it's in the midst of our anxiety that some of these angry feelings begin to come out, and we can find ourselves not able to express ourselves in any other way other than maybe posting an angry response on Facebook or on another social media site to someone we may not even know. But I think what James says here is so important, that we need to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger, and maybe even slow to responding. Because what the author of James says here is that our anger does not produce the righteousness of God. It doesn't produce in us those things that God wants to see us as Jesus followers to produce. It doesn't produce the fruit of the Spirit. It produces other things that actually end up alienating ourselves even more than maybe we think we are. So I say this to you because I say this to me first. It's been a struggle, and it's something that I have to remind myself of, because I need to practice what I preach. Even if what I preached was a long time ago, I need to practice what I preach and mean what I said, because this idea of looking at ourselves in the mirror, finding something that would convict ourselves about who we are is important. We need to have perspective on ourselves. But then this idea of once we walk away from the mirror, we forget what we look like. This idea of forgetting really the need that we have in ourselves and the place that we need to grow. You know, Jesus shared a parable, and I think it's relevant to what I'm talking about here. He shared this parable. It's from Luke chapter 18, beginning at verse 9. And listen who he's talking to here. It says, "Jesus also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and regarded others with contempt." So that's who he's talking to here. Those who think they are more righteous and regard others in contempt. He says, two men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, was praying thus: God, I thank you that I am not like other people, thieves, rogues, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast once a week. I give a tenth of my income. But the tax collector, standing far off, would not even look up to heaven, but was beating his breast and saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. Jesus then goes on to say, I tell you this, that this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, but all who humble themselves will be exalted. You know, I read that and I remind myself, maybe it's not in the midst of prayer that I exalt myself. I lift myself up and say, look how much better I am than others. Maybe it's not in prayer. Maybe it's on this thing here that I do that. But regardless, be it in prayer or be in things that I share on social media or in angry emails or in unthoughtful conversations, I need to be aware that the anger that I spew does not produce the righteousness that God expects from us. So this is my reminder to myself. If it applies to you, then allow it to remind you as well. If it doesn't apply to you, then pray for me, because I need your help. So let us continue to find ways that we might be kind to one another. Let us remember that we are guided by love and not by anger. And may we continue to find better ways to express ourselves, because this is what we are called to do. Thanks so much.